So we live in a society built around the idea of wealth and ownership, bombarded by commercials which lead us to believe the next piece of clothing or the next item of technology will bring us happiness. Oh, and by the way, the packaging is 100% recyclable. That means we won't be affecting the environment at all, right? Joining us today is Justin Herdman to discuss consumerism and the way it affects the environment. Justin, thanks for joining us today.
No problems, Josh.
So you've been obviously involved in a few environmental projects yourself, and I guess just wanted to get you on here today to talk about basically what is it doing when we're consuming, and how we're misled in recycling, and also like the way we perceive some of these environmental items that they promote to us, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So what, from your standpoint, what are the facts? What are the leading causes of pollution? Like, what are we led to believe about recycling? And what is consumerism doing for us?
I suppose consumerism is leading us down that path of a throwaway society at the moment, because the companies actually will sell you stuff that's not going to last anymore, so that they can actually sell more. Advertising actually creates that whole type of thing where they want you to buy more and more and more rather than less and better quality. I suppose that's one thing. And then the other thing is the amount of plastic that is involved with buying anything these days is amazing. I don't think we had that much plastic 30, 40 years ago, but we've got tons and tons now. Yeah.
And how much, when they talk about recycling and the process of breaking it down and what goes actually into the bin, and then what we don't see after that, basically from our recycle bin, and how much energy is that basically using to reproduce that into something that's usable again?
Yeah, well, here's something I don't think a lot of people know, that out of the stuff that goes into our yellow recycle bin that we've been told that's going off to, we're trying to do the right thing by putting it in the yellow recycle bin, it gets taken off. Out of that plastic, only 10% of that gets recycled. 90% of that actually goes into the landfill. Of that 10% that gets recycled, it can only be recycled once or twice maximum. It can't be recycled more than twice. That plastic is no longer usable after it's been recycled twice. A lot of people don't understand that fact. So a lot of misleading as far as us thinking that it's okay to recycle, when really it's not getting recycled at all. It's getting, most of it's getting, 90% is getting put in the landfill.
And what is that? What separates the stuff that we can and can't recycle? Obviously, the way you mentioned, like the amount of times it can be recycled, but there are other factors to that.
At the moment, I think what the factor that why that's so bad at the moment is because we can't send it to China. China was taking our plastic from us, and I don't know what they were doing with it. Hopefully they were turning into something else and sending it back. But now that's not happening. A lot of it's getting put into landfill. Obviously, canned aluminium and glass would be getting recycled, hopefully anyway. But plastic is the main issue, and obviously the plastic's the main issue because we know, most of us know, that takes a long time to break down. A lot of it's going to landfill, but out of 10, I think it's like another 10% of whatever's produced actually ends up in the oceans. And I think that's, and I also, most people know that of the, like that 10% that ends up in the oceans, I mean, it causes a lot of environmental problems. I don't know if that's leading off the track of what you've asked me, but
no, that definitely is what I was looking to kind of establish.
Yeah.
And I guess
so you're right.
I guess like there seems like this thing that everyone's kind of waiting for technology to solve our issues in better environment.
So true, Josh. That's so true. Like, and it's not working, is it? And how long have we been waiting for that answer? Like, it'd be great if that happens, but how long have we been trying to do that, and nothing's really solved that problem. So I think we have to come to the conclusion that recycling is not the answer. Actually, the answer is probably more like, let's try everything we can not to actually buy or use plastic in the first place. That's going to be the tough thing to do. And it's going to be tough to get people to realize that too, because big companies, these companies that produce the plastic, are trying to convince us that recycling is the answer, so that we feel better when we go to the shop and buy a bottle of Coke or buy anything with plastic in it, which most things have these days, plastic in there, that it's okay to do that because we've got this thing called recycling. But if the people knew the facts about what actually happens to all the plastic, then maybe they would think twice about buying the plastic in the first place.
Yeah, it's interesting you say we used to export a lot of our recycling to China. So not only we have to use all that energy to sort it and
So true.
comprise it into a portable system, then we had to pay for it to go all the way, half the way up to the other side of the world.
It's probably one of our best things that's happened in the recent in this time, is that China stopped taking it from us. So now we have to face the fact that we should do something about our waste. Mm-hmm. So that's probably going to help us in the long run to actually confront this issue and do something positive about it. Look, like you said, science could have the answers. It could, but at the moment they don't. And so all this stuff that we're producing over these years, and there'll be tons and tons per year, we've got to do something about. In the meantime, that stuff is breaking down. And like I said, like we talked about before, it's going into the ocean. It's killing animals, like obviously the turtles are there eating the plastic bags, thinking that it's jellyfish. They die. The birds are eating the plastic, filling up their guts with plastic, and so they're dying. Dolphins getting fishing line wrapped around their fins, getting dismembered from fishing line. Fish eat plastic. What actually happens is the plastic breaks down into microplastics, and then the fish are eating that plastic. And people might say, oh, it's okay, I just won't eat fish. But the problem is that it also breaks down to what they call nanoplastics, down to a micro level. And what they haven't worked out or determined yet is, are those nanoplastics being taken up into the clouds and taking over the land? And are they ending up onto our land, but also into our water supply? Are nanoplastics going into our water supply? Now, that may not be an issue, but the other thing a lot of people don't realize is that recently they've done some studies, and just looking at, I know this sounds a bit gross, but they've been looking at people's feces and finding that most people have microplastics in their feces. So we're unknowingly ingesting microplastics into our systems, right? Unknowingly. Even more recently, earlier this year, it's been, they did a scientific study, and they found that plastic actually affects the human immune cells. They've only just done that study. That is huge, because obviously if you join all these dots together with all the plastic that we've got in our system at the moment, and like I said, it's only been over the last 30, 40 years that that's become huge. Now we're finding this link between how plastic can affect humans, as far as directly. It's always been affecting us indirectly through our environment, but now it can be directly linked to our health as far as our immune cells. And that's just one study. But how would we be if those nanoplastics that actually do end up in the clouds, which would make a lot of sense if that happens, and then ends up in our water supply and we're drinking this stuff? We could be saturating our whole system with plastic. Pretty scary stuff.
Yeah, that just blew my mind. I think along the track of a similar comment I made before about waiting for technology to solve this problem. I feel like a lot of people are also waiting for the government to solve these problems, or the bigger companies to solve these problems. And I just think it's really crazy, because
I
it's
got another story to tell you.
contradiction to what I believe. So yeah, if you can definitely elaborate on
I'll give
that.
you another story. That puts us in the situation, like, okay, plastic could be really harming our health, right? The other problem we've got, if we're waiting for companies to do the right thing, we know that those manufacturing companies, the actual plastic manufacturing companies, like Coca-Cola, huge companies, are not environmentally friendly. Coca-Cola, for example, is a huge supporter of the tar sands in Canada. They're a major player with the tar sands of Canada. They also were the company that stopped many states in Queensland. We always had South Australia and Northern Territory doing the cash for recycling, right? About six years ago, they actually took the Australian government to court and won to stop them bringing in containers for change. So they put us behind 4 years at least to stop us from doing containers for change, because it didn't suit their business model. That's how environmentally friendly Coca-Cola is. So if we're waiting for the company to actually do the right thing, it's not going to happen, especially Coca-Cola. And they've got a really vested interest in not doing recycling, by the way. I'll just let you know another story. It is a lot cheaper for those companies to make bottles, etc., from a plastic sheet made directly from oil. It's a lot cheaper for them to make the plastic from the plastic, nice clean plastic sheet, than to actually use recycled material and make those bottles. That's why they don't really want to recycle, because it's so much more expensive to actually do it that way. But however, they still want us to believe that recycling is great. So recently they're talking about putting in recycling factories. One in Brisbane, actually, which sounds like a great idea. The problem is, I used to work for a paper recycling plant. Used to make toilet paper, etc. Anyway, they also had, so we had a lot of recycled material coming in, but they also had these big blocks of virgin material straight from the trees. Okay, so paper manufacturing, making toilet paper, etc. It was a lot more economical for them to use the virgin material and efficiency through the machine to actually use the virgin material instead of the recycled stuff. And so they would actually put dye into the paper to make it look like it was recycled paper, right? Just because it was more efficient and didn't cost them as much to actually use the virgin material. So even if Coca-Cola, since we do know that they're not environmentally friendly, even if they do put a big recycling plant there, you'll see stacks and stacks of plastic out the front of it or out the back of it, ready to get recycled, and they'll be showing us, yes, they're recycling. But you can bet that they will have the sheets of new plastic going through that place the majority of the time, and they'll be using a small percentage of the recycled stuff just to show us that it's okay to buy their product. To keep everyone, yep, it's okay, we're recycling, even if they just say, yeah, we use recycled material. It might be 1% of that material is recycled. But just so they can save lots of money, make it look like they're recycling, they will still be using those sheets of nice, fresh, oil-made plastic through their plant.
Do we know what's happening?
Sounds like a bit of a conspiracy theory.
It's yeah.
But it's all about money when it comes to companies. Of
course, yeah.
We know it's true. We know that's their background, so why wouldn't they? You know, so.
Do we know what's happening to the rest of those piles of plastic that they're sending there? Like,
what's happening now?
Well, yeah.
I actually talked to the people from Containers for Change. So that's the government organization. Yeah. I don't know what's happening to so we're actually going to the trouble now and getting 10 cents per bottle or whatever. Now we know that the cans, like I said, the cans and the bottles, that's a fantastic idea. We're getting those recycled. But the plastic, no one can tell me where the plastic's going.
Nobody. So not even the people at the deposit the change for containers could tell you.
Place. Yes.
Incredible.
They couldn't tell me. No,
Incredible.
no. I need to dig. I need to dig deeper. I might have to get the guy from the War on Waste to give me a hand. But I'd love to find out what's actually going on. But like I said, even if someone goes to a plastic recycling place at Coca-Cola, which I don't think they've been built yet, but when they do, they will show you everything you want to be shown. I've seen it happen. That's a personal experience working for a paper manufacturing place, recycled paper manufacturing place, by the way, hoodwinking people to believe that it was still recycled by just putting dye in there to make it look a bit browner. The paper to make, like, it was nice white paper as it came out if you didn't. So they'd make it look a bit browner so it was look like it was recycled. So the things that these companies will do just to make you believe that so that you keep buying their product, thinking that you're doing the right thing. So let's not. I don't think we should rely on the companies. There's the main thing, I guess, out of that point.
At the bottom line, like whenever there's a cry for supply, they will supply, right? When there's demand, they will supply, and
that's true.
So that basically just comes down to the bottom line. Is like when people say it's not up to me, we are the only people it's up to. We are 100% who it is up to.
Exactly.
And so what are some, obviously we don't have to all go and live in caves and then have like candles for lighting, but what are some small things that we can kind of implement without being too radical, or basically slowly incorporated into our lifestyle, or basically change our mindset when it comes to buying products?
They reckon a habit takes a month to develop. So if you can do something for a month, after that month, you should be able to stick with it to some degree, you know, if it's within reason and a good habit as well. So I think if everyone put their mind to it for a while, we could actually make some change there. But I think we need to do more than just that too. I think we really need to push it up the line as well, not just do it ourselves. We need to be able to push it up further, and maybe more of people getting the word out there to more people to actually know the truths of what's going on would be good too, I guess. But as far as living the way without plastic, I mean, you just have to look around everything that you do and try your hardest not to actually use plastic. I mean, just simple. There's a lot of simple ideas out there. Those beeswax wraps, for example, I'm using those now. I used to use Glad Wrap continuously on leftover food, etc. It just doesn't happen anymore. I don't buy Glad Wrap anymore, put it that way. I'm so glad that the government brought in the plastic bag in Queensland, at least.
Yes.
And I know that's a few places across Australia, but we really have to take that a bit more seriously. I hear that Queensland, for example, is trying to stop single-use plastic completely. If it can come from the top like that, that's a winner. So if we can influence the government, let's influence the government. Use things like GetUp, Change. What's that called? You'd know. What's the other organisation? I'm trying to think of what it's called now. Can't think.
We'll leave the link in yeah, go ahead.
I'll have to remember what that is.
Yeah.
But those sort of organisations, we have to use them as much as possible to actually get the word out there that it needs to change.
So how can someone be involved in some small projects without being a revolutionist, basically? Who can they, obviously you can Google anything, but you have some small recommendations, what people can kind of to influence a larger change? Only
through, I'm not sure. I think first off, you got to do you have to be the change yourself. Prove to yourself that you can do it yourself. Find ways to do it. We've got Google these days. There's all things we can Google to find out ways of not using plastic. Do it yourself first, and then using those places like GetUp and Change, I think it's called. Slipped my mind. Those sort of organisations to push it forward. But yeah, true. I think that's the only way we can do it. Influence as many people in your close circle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one thing that really resonated with me is I think the term the minimalist or being a minimalist gets thrown around really flamboyantly these days, almost to become trendy. But it really resonated me with the documentary, The Minimalists. And I think one key, they both have nice things. They wear decent clothes, but really made the point to, like, before you buy something, asking yourself, is this going to add value to my life? Or even doing your research a little bit better before you buy a product. Think, like, is this going to last me, or am I going to outgrow this, or is this not going to serve me in a few months and I'm going to be buying a newer one or a better one?
True. That's right. I think that's another thing that should happen is we should have, I haven't actually found it yet. I was going to ask you, they need like a built to last website, a web page that you can go to find the optimum material. So you want to buy something, you check that out first. You go, okay, these are the fors and against, and sustainability and ethical are the two things that they should match up to. If we can buy according to those two things, think about that. If you had a website you could go to, or an app or something to say, hey, what's the go? I want to buy this. What's the most sustainable and ethical material I can get? It's pretty difficult. I was looking up t-shirts the other day. There is a company in Australia. You're looking at about $70, $80 just for a plain t-shirt, just black. I couldn't find any of the colors. It was crazy. Wow. But it's limited. It's very limited. And I think clothing is a whole different story anyway, because there's so many different areas that clothing gets affected by. But I'm sure there's other, like you said, if you want to buy something of value, like that you want to have to last for a long time, then you should have that option to do that. It's awfully hard to find these days, that people make things to build to last, because the companies want them to break so that you have to buy more. Yeah, it's a bit of a catch-22, but I think it's worth either looking for, or let's start something that we can make it easy for ourselves to find that stuff before we spend the money.
Yeah.
So that we know our money is going to what we believe in, rather than just to some company to make them rich.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is going to boil down to that mindset, and stop trying to fill your voids with material possessions, and start getting out there and doing things like enjoying nature, or enjoying other people's company, and that connection. Not trying to get your dopamine from kind of temporary solutions or purchases.
That's so true. Yes. Yeah. It's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
Yes. I'll just agree with that.
Well, thanks for joining us today, Justin. It was a really interesting chat, and hope to have another conversation further down the road about a similar topic, go a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about sustainability next time, and the answers that we got for that too. So yeah, that'll be great. Thanks for that, Josh.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin.
Good talking to you.
If you found this video interesting, I've put all the information below in the description. The documentary Minimalism, created by the Minimalists. Another documentary, The Secret Behind Coca-Cola's Waste, is in the description below. The website mentioned by Justin, getup.org.au. There's also, if you want to see more about my own work, The Growing Movement, you can go to thegrowingmovement.com, or alternatively, you can donate directly in the link below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe this video if you want to see more.